KTRF 945, time for our Hometown Heroes, brought to you by Phillips Iron and Metal, by Oakley Quilting, Roxbury Truck Repair in the Thief River Falls Regional Airport. And joining us on our Hometown Heroes today is Tim Berglund. Tim, thanks for coming in.
No, my pleasure, Mark.
Appreciate you having some, I know it's last minute. I do this sometimes. Sometimes I'm a week ahead, sometimes it's last minute, and I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. We want to talk a little bit about Tim Berglund. You had a great career, and of course you're back here, and you've had a great career with coaching with the Prowlers. We'll get to that in a little bit, but let's go back. Let's talk about Tim when he was a little. Where were you born and raised?
Sure. Well, Thief River. Yeah. It was. I suppose it was a while ago now, but I grew up here and came back ultimately. But it's been fun, and it was a nice childhood. We had a lot of fun, a lot of sports. It's a fun time of year. Obviously, now you see all the kids out and about. But it was a great time.
So, raised in Thief River Falls, went to Lincoln High School, went to the schools here.
Yeah.
Were you more than a hockey player? Did you play other sports too?
Yeah, it was kind of the standard. You know, it was baseball in the summer, and I did football up until grade 9. Then I ran cross country. And played hockey, and then had opportunity to play baseball until my senior year. That year I was able to play some hockey event post high school, and back then if you did that, anything, it was kind of, now they can do kind of extra things past high school, but back then if you did it, you were ineligible to play any other sport. It was some sort of an all-star team, and we went out east, went out to Boston to play Team Minnesota, and so then I forfeited my baseball, and Charlie Cornell gave me some advice then. He said, you know, your future may not be in baseball. Probably will be in hockey, so go ahead and do it. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a Charlie on this show, so he's certainly some words of wisdom. There's no doubt there.
Yeah.
Okay, so after high school, then more into hockey. What did you do after high school?
Yeah, well, it was my senior year was kind of whirlwind. It was going into the year. My older brothers both played college hockey. Scott and Todd both played at Northland back then, and then they went on to St. Thomas, and my plans were kind of the same thing. You know, I just was going to play. I wanted to play hockey, and Northland, St. Thomas, I had no idea what I was going to do, and then I just had a very good start to my senior year in high school, and all of a sudden colleges and pro teams were coming by and watching and talking to me, and it was all kind of new to me. My first team that talked to me, I always say the story, was the Hartford Whalers, which was a pro team back then, and they moved down to Carolina now. They're the Hurricane, and their scout came and talked to me after the game, and I didn't know, have a clue who the Hartford Whalers were. I thought it was a college team, and so it was a very exciting time. A lot of things happening, and ultimately I ended up going to Minnesota, choosing Minnesota, and then got drafted that year, that summer, right out of high school. June, I was on my way down to the cities. Actually, I'd already signed with Minnesota, and so that summer I was going to go down there, train and skate. And on my way down on the radio is when I heard I was drafted, and that was by Washington. So
you heard over the radio?
Yeah, it was.
Of course, there wasn't all the cell phones back then, was there?
Yeah, no phones or anything. Yeah, I was on the radio. They kind of went through the Minnesotans that were drafted. I was luckily the first Minnesotan taken that year. And a U.S. kid. It was the U.S. It was in 1983, so it was just after the Olympic success in '80.
Yeah.
And so they were starting to take a lot more Minnesota kids or U.S. kids, I should say, back then, and it wasn't the norm. And so I credit them a lot to helping further U.S. and so I ended up getting drafted and played 4 years at Minnesota and moved on. Yeah.
Exciting times. You mentioned how it was a whirlwind, and as a young kid, the lot came at you in a hurry, didn't it?
Very, very much so. And, you're kind of inundated with it. Coach Wendell Grand was my coach at the time, helped a lot in talking to me. My family, of course. We didn't have a lot of necessarily people with experience in it. I know Tom Goddard went to North Dakota at the time, and some other people to talk to. But I was getting recruited by other schools out east, other schools in this area, and you know, I don't know, for some reason I just chose Minnesota. It just seemed like the place to be. Minnesota kid, and a great 4 years there. Good hockey, and my upbringing here. I mean, the school, how it prepared me for college. Honestly, I felt that college was almost easier than high school. Once I got to college, like I say, with the schooling, the education I had here, but it was a big step, obviously, going from Thief River to Minnesota, and the campus, it was huge. It was 60,000 or whatever it was, just as at the schools. But right away, you get involved with your team. We got there a month early. You got your group. You get together as a group, and so it became a small school pretty quick.
Right, and a family.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
so you go through college, and you move on after college, and you get into the pros. And so, take us after college? What happened?
Yeah. So then, I was drafted out of high school, and the norm then was to play 4 years of college. You didn't see a lot of kids like they do now, and it was structured differently with how contracts and getting drafted. There's a certain window now that kids have and teams have. If you get drafted, you have so many years before you lose that person's rights, if you will. And I'll probably get half of it wrong, but from the way I understand it, for us, you were drafted, you were there, and so I played my 4 years. And then went to camp in Washington. It didn't have a contract or anything at that point. I was drafted in the fourth round, which is a decent pick. It's not a first round pick where you're surely not guaranteed anything, but most first round picks are going to be given the opportunity to fail. Where a mid round pick like I was, like I say, I was the first one out of Minnesota, but I was the fourth round, I believe it was third or fourth round anyway, which is a decent pick, but it wasn't necessarily, like I say, a high pick. So I went to camp without a contract. It's back then it's 70 kids at camp, kind of vying for probably 40 spots. When you have 20 on the main team in the NHL, and then you have another 20 or so in the minors. And so going to camp without a contract, and you have to earn your stripes pretty quick, and it's a different game. It was much more physical. It's a pro style game, a lot of fighting, that kind of stuff that I wasn't used to. But it's kind of sink or swim at that point, and it's what I wanted to do, and it was my one opportunity. So I had a very good camp. Ended up getting a contract right at the end of camp, and then kind of moved on from there. I spent, I guess, over the next course of the next 12 years playing pro hockey. It was the first year and a half playing in the minors. I was in Binghamton, New York. I was in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and then ended up going to move their team to Baltimore and playing and that time was the American League, and now it's still the American League. But then ended up getting called up to Washington. And then playing there and playing in the playoffs for a number of years there and having some success with the team, and then got picked up by Tampa in the expansion draft when Tampa started. That would have been in 92 or 3. They picked me up in the expansion draft and went down there, played a couple of years there, and then I got picked up in the waiver draft back to Washington, and ended up spending a little time there at the end of that year. And then I went to, I went to the New York Islanders that next year for a training camp, and then that was when the lockout was, and the owners locked the players out, and I ended up signing in Chicago in the International Hockey League at that time. They were just starting. The league had been there forever, but they just started up a number of different teams in Chicago and Detroit and Las Vegas and San Antonio, a lot of big market cities, and so I ended up signing. An old coach of mine from Tampa was in Chicago and offered me a contract. At that point, I was married and had kids were on the way, and I had a nice contract for 3 years, and it just seemed like the right thing to do at that time. And the team, unbelievable team, great ownership. They're still there today. They're actually in the finals right now. And I had a short stint over in Finland as well. So it was a long career, a lot of movement. but it was just a great experience.
It sounds like it. It sounds like you enjoyed a lot of it.
Yes.
Okay, then we would find out. Tim would, of course, come back here. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Hometown Heroes today brought to you in part by Roxbury Truck Repair, Truck Shop, Truck and Trailer Repair, Maintenance Repair, and Trailer Repair as well at Roxbury Truck Repair. Phillips Iron and Metal. They accept all ferrous and non-ferrous metals, including but not limited to stainless steel, copper, brass, aluminum, lead, insulated wire, nickel, high-temp alloys, precious metals, etc. Whether you bring material to us or we bring us to you, they provide quality service at competitive pricing. Of course, Oakley Quilting. Oakley Quilting Supply carries many quilting lines that include Moda, Henry Glass, Quilting Treasures, and many more. Oakley Quilting Supply for all your quilting needs. And of course, the Thief River Falls Regional Airport with hassle-free security and free parking. Be sure to check out the benefits by flying local. The Thief River Falls Regional Airport, your front door to the rest of the world. Tim Berglund is our guest today. And of course, after a great career, Tim, and all this, you come back home. Mm-hmm. And what brought you back home?
Yeah, I guess just my family and raising kids, my kids here. Once I retired from hockey in 1999. Then I have a lake cabin down by Fergus, and I ended up living there for four years and coaching the Fergus hockey team. But then the rink was getting built here, and just a job opportunity. Someone had asked if I'd be interested in coming back, and I was. And so I ended up coming back, and it was always kind of a dream to come back and coach your hometown, and the opportunity was there. My brother was coaching the team at the time and asked if I wanted to be an assistant, and I jumped at that, and it was just a lot of fun. And obviously, like I say, the big thing is just getting my kids back and give them the opportunity to grow up in this kind of a community. Yeah, and doesn't hurt to have a beautiful facility. Too. That was kind of a big bonus, wasn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Going to the rink every day, and it's very nice. It's we're lucky, we're fortunate, and it's helped the program immensely. We're running out of time real quick here, Tim. It's great to have you here. How long have you been coaching now as head coach of the Prowler boys
head coach,
team? I'm going on about 11 or 12 years, okay. I think, yeah.
How many state tournament runs here?
Let's see, 5, I believe.
Is it?
Yeah.
Which was a little more uncommon until, let's see, it was Scott did Scott bring him down first, right?
Yeah,
and then
06.
Okay, and then you brought him down a few times since then. So
yeah, it's been great. It's
kind of renewed the Prowler hocky again.
Yes, absolutely. We always had great players and just couldn't get over that hump, and it's such a mental battle, obviously, and it's great to see all the teams now, in every sport they're going: volleyball, baseball, softball, basketball, wrestling. I mean, they're
learning
great.
The winning ways again. It is cool.
It is a habit. There's no question.
I have a question, Tim, as we're running out of time. If you had some advice, and I'm sure you've been asked this a number of times, but if you had some advice to give to kids, because all of us want to grow up to be pros. I wanted to be a Minnesota Viking. I always did. Never made it there. But if people have aspirations of becoming a pro player, right. I mean, it's a dream of a lot of people. How do they go about it? What can they do to give themselves a shot at it?
Obviously, you're given some talent, and part of that has a lot to do with your success. But probably discipline and consistency are the two biggest things for me. There's a lot of good players when you go to Minnesota or when you go to training camp. Those first few years, it's just the guys that find a way, find a niche, and find a way to make it work. For me, I knew what kind of player I had to be to play. And it's just that discipline and not finding excuses probably are the biggest things that I found.
At what age do you think a kid can recognize whether they possibly have the talent or possibly don't? Because kids, it's tough to know.
They all have the dream, of course, when you're that young age. And when you get to be that high school age, you realize if you have skill and if you're able to do things at a high level, and at that age you should know that the opportunity is there, and then it's just the work ethic. It's a 24/7 type of thing. You read about players, and everyone has stories about how hard they work and things they did, the family, the friends, the coaches, and the opportunity is there. We have the facility. We have the coaching at the high school is great, and the opportunity is there. Just don't find excuses.
Yeah, work hard.
Yeah,
work hard.
Absolutely.
Tim, thanks so much for coming in. I know it's last minute, but I appreciate you coming in.
Oh, my pleasure, Mark.
Well, a lot of us don't realize the blessing we have of having you here. I know you don't think that, but we do know that because there's a lot of talent that you've brought here to the local team. So, and it's fun to have you in town.
Good,
so,
thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Tim Berglund, our guest today on Hometown Heroes, brought to you by Phillips Iron and Metal, Oakley Quilting, Roxbury Truck Repair, and the Thief River Falls Regional Airport.